Hello and welcome to Tokyo Inklings. My name is CY. You can find me on my website at tokyostationpens.com, on Instagram at tokyostationpens, and on Twitter at tokyostationmnh.
And my name is Jacob. I am Foodafan on Instagram and on Twitter, and I have a blog at foodafan.com.
All right, Jacob, it's episode 23. I'm very, very excited. It's one of the first episodes that we've been really able to record together, just the two of us after a while. I think it's been, at least a month. So I'm really excited to get back to that kind of regular programming in a sense. And we've got some exciting stuff as usual for everybody on this episode. A lot of, I guess, news, but also I don't know. It's some acquisitions. We haven't really acquired so many things, I think, over the past few weeks, at least compared to our usual Yahoo auctions and Mercari sprees.
That's true.
But I see that you've put something on the acquisitions, and that's the Streamline. So I believe this is from Maruzen.
Yeah, so first of all, if you remember, I said that my New Year's resolution was to not buy any pens for the first quarter, and that lasted 15 days. So
that's not bad, actually, 15 days.
Yeah, so I went on Mercari this morning, and I saw one of those Athena Streamline pens for just a fantastic price. So I had to buy that. I sent a message to you this morning, but then our discussion got distracted, so I never got to explain what I bought. So to explain why I'm interested in this pen, just to step back a bit. I mean, we have talked about Maruzen and how influential Maruzen has been to Japan, how they actually introduced fountain pens to Japan, including Onoto, so De La Rue's Onoto, which was probably one of the most influential brands ever in Japan.
Yep.
And Onoto stopped producing pens, or rather De La Rue stopped producing Onoto pens in like 1958 or something like that. But Onoto was still popular in Japan at that time, so the Japanese pen makers kept making what they call the Onoto style, or like Onotogata pens, for a long time. And even today, there are still Onoto style pens made in Japan. And one of those brands was, of course, Maruzen's own Athena. So back in the day, Maruzen had its own pen manufacturing. They had its pen factory in Tokyo, I think, in Shinagawa. But from the 90s, if I remember correctly, they outsourced pen making to Pilot. So the Athena pens from the 90s are made by Pilot. And I think one of the earliest examples of these Pilot-made Athena pens was the Streamline. I think it was Maruzen's anniversary, the 125th anniversary, where they had the anniversary pen, and that was, I believe, the first Streamline pen. And since then, they made various iterations of this Streamline pen. I've seen mentions of something called like Series 2 and Series 3. And actually, even today, if you go to Maruzen's online store today, you can buy Athena Streamline pens. So they are still made. But I think the one I got, I'm not entirely sure, because there was, as usual, a very bad photo and the description was not crystal clear. But I believe I got one of the earliest ones. I will get the pen tomorrow, so I will have to take a closer look at it then and probably do a write-up, because I'm really curious about Maruzen's history in general and this Athena pens in particular. One thing I find interesting is how open they are about the fact that this is very much an homage to Onoto.
Yeah.
I mean, it's right there in the name. Like, the full name of this pen is Maruzen Athena Streamline Onoto Model. So Onoto Model is in the product name.
Isn't Onoto still like a company today?
Yes, so there is a company that makes and sells Onoto pens, but it's not the original De La Rue. I don't know the full history there, it was revived, I think, in the 90s or something like that. And I think Maruzen may have been involved one way or another, but it's not the original De La Rue.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like, I think there is a company that owns the trademark to Onoto.
Yeah.
But it's not the same, right?
It's not the same, no.
Yeah. And I'm not sure, I don't mean to contradict you. I think Athena had their own factory where they made their own pens, but I think that part of their production was also offloaded to Pilot already. And I say this because I think a lot of the other department stores, so for example, Mitsukoshi also had their own line of pens, and also Matsuya had their own line of pens, and I think those were outsourced to Pilot. And if you look at the pens themselves, they're actually very similar to some of the old Athena pens. So I think you're probably entirely right that Maruzen made their own pens under the Athena line. So for example, the conical nibs were probably not made by Pilot, the steel nibs. But I think Pilot and Maruzen's relationship did go back even to the 50s and 60s.
That's possible. I haven't seen anything about that, but that may be true. But what is very clear from the pens from the 90s and onward is that you can see from on the nib and on the feed, it's crystal clear that those are all made by Pilot. It may have been a mix before, I'm not sure, but since the 90s, it's clearly only Pilot.
Yeah. And yeah, you're absolutely right. Now it's all Pilot when it comes to the Athena branding, except for the inks. I think that's kind of funny that the Athena inks are Sailor, but the pens are Pilot.
Yeah, except that what I've heard was that some of their inks, like not the Eternal Blue, but their Blue Black was just rebranded Pilot Blue Black. I haven't seen any sort of evidence. It's more rumors, but I think they don't have the Sailor smell. At least they didn't have the Sailor smell.
That's interesting, though. Then who's making the bottles? Because those come in a set, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And Maruzen re-released some of their inks. So Lemon now, for example, comes in the same pill bottle as Blue Black.
Maruzen has used that bottle design for well over 100 years. So, yeah.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying, right? I mean, who's making the bottles for them now? Are they getting just, I don't know, gallons of ink and then they're rebottling it themselves? I'm not sure.
We need to investigate further.
I think it must say on the back of one of the boxes.
It might do.
I'll check later. Yeah. So running off of that, I also got one new pen, which was totally an unexpected find. I was at Kingdom Note the other day, picking up a pen for somebody else, and I see this interesting section that I hadn't really noticed before. So a lot of people are very concerned with, for example, some cosmetic issues of certain pens. And when you buy, for example, on Mercari or when you buy on Yahoo Auctions, very oftentimes you'll see that they will say that the pen is a junk item.
Yeah.
So that might include, for example, the person has no idea how to use fountain pens and never tested it, and therefore it's a junk item. Or it could be it has, I don't know, a small scratch on the clip and therefore it's a junk item. And so I notice that there is a section called junk on Kingdom Notes on the floor. And so I go over and I see this pen point Rialo, the Amagaeru, I think that's what it's called. It's this greenish Rialo. It's got a clear body with a lot of glitter in it. And this really caught my eye because, first of all, it was in the junk section. And the sticker price on it was 5,500 yen. So that's $55. And I was like, oh, if it's something that I can repair, I could probably just take it in, repair it, and sell it off. So I asked the staff to show me this pen, and they open it and they show me the pen. And first I was looking for the junk part, what is junk about this? So I twist the piston, it works. I noticed that some ink had dried in there, and some of it had gone to the back of the piston. So probably the seal is not 100% the best. But seemed to me that it's possible simply that it's just dried ink, and if it's wet ink, it would probably seal a lot better. And then the second thing is that I noticed the piston connector, one part was pressed against the inner barrel, so you could see that there's this, it kind of looks like water, but it's not, where you can see that it's not, even. And I was like, if this is all that is, I have, a spare part for the piston, so let me just try to make it work out. So I uncapped the pen, maybe there's something in there. And lo and behold, I find a zoom nib on this pen. And, Sailor just increased the price of the zoom nibs by, I think, 5,000 yen. So basically, in my mind, I thought, wow, this is basically, I'm paying for the nib, and then the pen comes free. So I buy this pen with the full intention of selling it later. I come home, I open it up, and I start, trying to figure out how I'm going to repair this when Akane comes and she says, "Oh, what's that pen?" I was like, "Oh, it's just a pen. I'm gonna fix it up and sell it. I got a really good price." And she immediately claims it. So, I mean, I sold it to her for $20. But it's, I think anything shiny and glittery now, I'm not sure if I can keep those long enough to sell anymore.
But we had an interesting discussion about this before, right? Because I think people have asked us too, like, are people swapping nibs in Japan? And in general, in our experience, the answer is no. So even if you found a pen with a fantastic nib, which seems to be the case here, it's not that common, it seems, to just take that nib and just swap it on another pen, like take sort of a boring black pen with a Naginata nib and stick it on some Pentanote pen. That doesn't seem to be very common.
Yeah, not at all. I think a lot of people just prefer to use it out of the box, and I'm sure this is true for the Western audience too. I mean, not the really, really Numa people like us, but I think most people, they probably have some hesitation.
Yeah.
And we spoke about this, nib grinding is not really a thing here. So the only people, I guess, really doing it are Nagahara, but that's really, really new. And I think he got the idea from going to pen shows in the US. You have Pen and Message.
Yeah.
And then you have the Wagner people. Who are not very good.
Yeah, they're not very good. That's the whole separate discussion. But I have unsuccessfully tried to sell nibs. You and I, we together, we had a table at one of the Wagner events like 2 years ago, I think. And I think you had, if it was like Jovo or Canwright nibs or whatever it was, but you have ground them to like Architecture and Naginata. And there were a lot of people who sort of were interested in them, but no one bought them. They didn't really know how to use them, even though we tried to explain. And I had similar experience trying to sell nibs on the second-hand markets, on Mercari in particular. Like Jovo nibs, no one wants them. Like other kinds of nibs, like Canwright, Moonman, no one wants them. The only kind of nibs I've ever been able to sell in Japan have been Twisby nib units, because it's so
interesting.
Yeah, because it's so easy to swap them, or so obvious, I guess, which pens they fit and how to swap.
Yeah, it's customization is not really a thing here. I think even Hiroko, I think the vast majority of our customers are overseas.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And, speaking of nib alteration, there is an event today, I think started yesterday, but today as well, and it extends to tomorrow, that I'm very surprised is happening, because the last time this event was scheduled, it got cancelled due to COVID.
Yeah.
And the event is Mr. Nagahara's nib grinding event in Omotesando at Bunga Box.
Yeah.
Now, last time, and we mentioned this on the podcast as well, Nagahara's, I think, daughter was very concerned about the outbreak of COVID. Back then we had, I think, 200-ish cases per day. And so she kind of begged her dad not to go to Tokyo. So he still did the Hamamatsu one, but he didn't come to the Tokyo one. And I think we were both signed up to do that one back then. And earlier, I think 2 months ago, I got a notice from Boombox saying, okay, we're going to do the event again, and whoever had reservations last time, we're going to give them priority. So they asked me if I wanted to go. I didn't respond because I kind of didn't want to go anymore. I think you booked a slot as well. But what surprises me is that, now we're having 2,000 cases a day.
Yeah.
And he's still going on with the event. So I think that kind of shows the COVID fatigue everybody's having in Japan. I mean, we are in a so-called state of emergency, but it doesn't seem to be deterring anybody. And I'm looking at pictures right now from one of our friends who's actually there at the event, masked up. But, social distancing in this Boombox shop is not very easy because the size is probably smaller than a toilet.
It's a very small shop. Yeah, I think people... since Boombox is one of the most well-known, overseas most well-known Japanese retailers, maybe people believe it's a big shop, but this is a tiny little shop in a corner.
It's in a hole in a wall.
Yeah.
There's some kind of barrier that separates the customer and the grinder, but still it's... I mean, the ventilation is not good in there. I don't know. I just don't know if it's worth it. And Nagahara has increased his prices significantly. So if you look at his prices, I think last time the advertised price was like 2,000 per pen.
Well,
which was too low.
It's different because he has 4 different price levels.
No, but last time, the first time he did it, the first time he did it 2 years ago in 2019. I think it was 2,000 to 3,000 per pen because he had just started and he was still with Sailor.
I didn't go back then, so I never got to take advantage of those price levels. But last time when I went, you already had that. I think it started at 3,000 just to get like nib ink flow adjustment all the way up to like close to 10,000 yen if you wanted a Concord or Naginata.
Yeah. So now his price list is 3,000 yen for what he calls maintenance.
Yeah.
So you basically just, ink flow and maybe some smoothing, but he doesn't change the shape of the nib. And then you have these custom A, custom B, custom... Oh, no, yeah. It's B custom, C custom, and D custom. And it's not clear to me what's what except for B custom. So B custom is a 3,000 yen, that's the base price, plus 4,000 yen for a size reduction.
Yeah.
And one size down is plus 4,000. And then per size down afterwards, that's a plus 1,000 yen. So if you have a B and you want to grind that down to... Or you know what? You know how Nagahara says it's best to grind needle points from like music nibs?
Yeah, we talked about that, yeah.
So then that would be a 3,000 yen base, right? Plus a 4,000, plus a music, broad, medium, fine, extra fine. So that's like $120.
Yeah, and then he has one price level which I think is for stubs and italics and architects, but he doesn't use the word architect. He calls them Arabic, I think.
Yeah, Arabics.
And that's like 6,000 yen in total, I believe.
No, that's 3,000 plus 5,000.
Okay, so okay. But then the level after that is Concord and Naginata. Well, he doesn't use those names, but it is Concord and Naginata.
But the thing is, I'm looking at the price list now. In the 5,000 one, there's something called NK and NDE, but I don't know what that means.
Yeah, that was interesting to me too, because he recently, and we talked about this on the podcast, he did a video when he introduced his grinds and with the new names he had made up for them. So we talked, for example, about how he has the beak instead of Concord and Nagahara Special instead of Naginata, right? So that seemed to be the name that he had decided on, but I don't see those names here, or I see new acronyms that are unfamiliar to me.
Yeah, I see the NP. Maybe that's the needle point. So that's in the plus 6,000. So that's a total of 9,000.
Yeah.
And then there's something called SEF, which I don't know what that means.
But it probably does not mean soft, right? Because he is not a big fan of soft nibs.
Well, he wanted to do them, but in the end, I think he gave up. And then there's this endpoint, which I think is the Nagahara Special, aka the Naginata, and that's cost separately. So he doesn't tell you the cost on the price list. And interestingly, the pen that I got from Kingdom Note, I think it might be destined to go to Nagahara, but quite frankly, I'm not sure, because in order to get a Nagahara grind, so you can mail in your pens to get a ground, but the process is so tedious.
Yes, and I think that ties into the question you had before, why are they doing this now? So we know that Nagahara is doing this mail-in thing, right? You fill out a form, you send a pen to him, and then he does a grind. But as you say, that procedure is so tedious. And I've looked at them, we talked about it before, I looked at them at the form several times, and I've also given up in the end. And I think a lot of people probably have done the same thing. So maybe he's not getting that many orders, and that may be one of the reasons why he's convinced to get some business in Omotesando.
That's such a I don't know, that's such a domestic thing to do. Well, we're not getting enough orders, so instead of changing the thing that's making us not get enough orders, let's go do something else, which is totally crazy.
But I'm sure he has a lot of fans in Tokyo that have asked him repeatedly to come, and I know. I'm going to tomorrow, by the way, or I have a slot tomorrow. I'm most likely going. But I remember when I booked it, the slots were filling up very fast, and if you look at Bungbok's Instagram post, they emphasize that if you cancel, please tell us early in advance, because there's a long waiting list. There's a lot of people who want a nib grind by Nagahara.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, he's a very good nib grinder. You know,
Yeah.
he's got his reputation for a reason. But I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I more and more fail to see the. I'm less enticed to make the effort to go, especially now during COVID, and especially with this increasing, price list, because he's asking like 9,000 yen for a grind. That's so hefty, and I know that Pen and Message, they are really expensive too. They're like 8,000 yen. It's like $80 for an Italic grind, which to me is just outrageous. But that's what it is. And because there is so few supply here, I guess that's what people want to do. And interestingly, I think at Wagner you can get something ground for like 1,000 yen.
Yes, but you get what you pay for.
Yes, we were sent a picture of a Pelican that was supposed to be adjusted by Mr. Mori, and oh goodness, what a disaster.
Yes. But so going back to Nagahara, there are two reasons why I want to go tomorrow. First of all, I have a list of questions that I want to ask Nagahara, and at the top of that list is about these Sailor Theta pens that I wrote a post about before. It's been so hard to find information online. I want to ask him if he knows anything about these the brainwave pens, if he has anything. Another thing I want to ask him is about these the green Wagner pens. I remember Mori-san talked about how the grinds on these pens were not standard Naginata, if there is such a thing, but something new, something different. And I think you talked too about that, how how this was a grind that actually works in reverse writing too. So I want to ask Nagahara, how he would describe this grind and maybe get the same kind of grind.
But you have some BB pilots, right? So you can do that.
Yes, and that sort of leads to sort of the second reason I want to go. It's possible that I might actually get a Bungbox pen, because if you look at the email that we got, it says that if you buy a pen from Bungbox,
you don't pay the 3,000 yen maintenance fee.
Well, it says Choso Muriodes. So if that only means the 3,000, which is probably that's the 3,000 yen, adjustment, then might not be worth it. But if it actually means any Nagahara service, then it might be worth getting a Bungbox pen and get a Naginata on it. But I don't. Okay. Yeah, you're right. That's probably not the intention. But if that is the case, then maybe I will get a Motosander Blue with a Naginata, possibly.
But because I am looking at Nagasawa's page where he's doing an event at the end of the month, and it says if you buy a fountain pen that is over 3,000 yen. If you buy a fountain pen from their store and get it ground, right there, then the 3,000 yen is free.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
Yeah. I mean, bring your BBs, bring your course nibs, and you can get something interesting done on them.
Yeah, I have a Pilot 743 with a course nib. So my original idea was to get a Kaiha like Naginata B on it.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
So we'll see.
You should also ask him about the NBs on the Koen.
If he knows anything about who's making them, and could do that.
All right. So I think the state of emergency obviously hasn't affected the event at Bungbox, but we have some different events. Wagner usually holds an event in, I think, February. Itoya had held their event last year in Kinkink, and then interestingly, Bunga Joshi, which we talked about extensively several episodes ago, are holding an online event. So why don't we go down the list? Wagner.
Yes. So we talked last year. I mean, we started this podcast during the state of emergency, right? And I remember there was this time when a lot of other events were cancelled. So Kamihake was cancelled. Tonun Limit had planned an event at Okamoto, I believe, that was cancelled. There were other events that were cancelled. But the Wagner event, so the spring show and the pen trading, they were not cancelled. And we were discussing what may have been the reason for that and how Mori-san wanted to sell pens and so on. And we were a bit critical of their decision. But for that reason, it's quite interesting how Mori-san has now decided to cancel the event that was planned today. So they have this regular club meeting. Previously those were in Suidobashi. Now they are in Hamamatsucho, so the same venue as Tokyo Pen Show. And was meant to be today, but if you look at his blog post, he said that he is cancelling because there's another event at the same venue, so in Hamamatsucho. And it's going to be a lot of wakamono, young people, and he thought that's too risky for him. So he mentioned that as the reason for the cancellation.
Oh.
So,
all right.
So I was a bit curious about that. What was this event? So I actually went to the website for this Hamamatsucho venue, and the only event for today I can find is something by CFA Japan. And CFA Japan is the Cat Fanciers Association. This is a cat show.
Okay, yeah. I can see why he thinks that the cat show might have a lot of people.
That was too much for him, yes.
Oh, that's hilarious. I haven't been following Mori for a while, to be honest, but that, maybe I need to go read his blog. Yeah. Itoya?
Yes, so I went to Italy a few days ago and I asked about this Ink event, and they told me that yes, they have no plans to do it this year. So
Okay, makes sense.
which is not. I mean, that was we expected that because we hadn't heard anything, and it was about this time of year last year, right, when they held the event. So
I think so. Yeah. And then Bungu Joshi Online. I think this is very interesting because in December, there were 19,000 people in attendance for Bungu Joshi, the Bungu Joshi Haku, which is, I think, easily the largest stationery fair in the world. The previous year was more than 33,000.
Yeah.
But obviously they were severely impacted financially. I mean, by the pandemic, that they decided to do a crowdfunding event last year. We talked about this on the podcast. And what's curious to me is that they decided just, I think, 1 month or 2 months after the huge event to do an online event. I think the idea is that some people who were not able to go to that event in November, this gives them an opportunity to buy something.
Yeah.
That's the altruistic answer. The less altruistic answer is that they've discovered that online is still a huge avenue to purchase.
Yeah.
So, Akane is fully Numa now, so she goes on the website and she picks out several items that she wants, and then she asks me to go and help her buy it. No problem. I have the links beforehand. I expect there to be a lot of people trying to purchase, because just even their in-person events are so popular. So the website was ready before the event, so you could see which items you wanted.
Yeah.
But sales started at noon that day. So I open all the links a few minutes before noon, and then as noon hits, I refresh the page, and it just crashes. And I finally got everything that I wanted to buy. It took me about 32 minutes to check out 5 items, which is ridiculous. But if you look on their Instagram post, you have all of these complaints about how the website just doesn't work. Like, it's just not planned out properly. I mean, they should know that they're going to get a lot of traffic, because apparently they had done a mini event before online, and it just crashed back then. But to hold an event and then just to have it crash, I think Japanese event organizers probably need to get on board faster with this whole online thing. For it to crash, not being able to... So here are the problems, right? First, the page didn't open.
Yeah.
So you would load the page, and it would load, and it would load, and it would load, and then you would lose connection with the server. So if you are lucky enough to get the page to open, then you hope all the pictures load. So once they load, there's a add to cart button. But if you press the add to cart button, nothing happens. So you just furiously click it over and over and over again, and then about 10 minutes later, you'll have 7 of these in your cart. But putting them in your cart does not hold that item for you. So the item is only held when you actually finish paying, which I get it, right? But you can't see what items are sold out until you get to the payment screen.
Right.
So people didn't know if they were able to purchase the product in their carts. And so it's a total crapshoot to get to the end, because the add to cart button doesn't work. So it's like, 5 to 10 minutes on each page. And if I added, 5 5 items. It took like, 30 minutes to do. That's just, I think that's just a result of the lack of experience with the online events.
Yeah, I remember getting a message from you yesterday. You were furious, and you said it was a disaster in all caps.
It's a disaster. I mean, it was awful. It was just awful.
So yeah, I remember I went and checked when you said that, and I had the same experience. You went to the link from the Instagram profile, and then was like page could not load, and you loaded, but it gave up halfway. Yeah, it wasn't a very good experience. Later in the day, and also today, it's actually fine. But predictably, all of the
products
items
are sold out.
Yeah, the things that people wanted to buy, they're all sold out now.
Yeah, so I think that's an interesting juxtaposition, because I think Bungojoshi actually hosts and organizes some of the best in-person events. I've gushed about how well organized I think Inknuma is. I think Bungojoshi, I like their system of checkout in person. But with the online events, I think they really need to step their game up, because I think it's just so important to have happy customers, especially if you're doing an event like this. It's a bit of a disservice to the event and to the image of their brand. So, that's just it's a bit of a shame. Although they are one of the only ones who are really doing online events with websites.
What I appreciate about the Bungojoshi event, if you contrast it to Tono and Lims, is that at least you got everything in one place.
Yeah, totally. I think that's actually such a big aspect.
But then the other problem...
Now if they can get proper servers.
Yeah, there's that too. But the other problem that we discussed yesterday was the price, right? So there seems to be a fixed price. It depends on where you are in Japan, but shipping to Tokyo or to the Kanto area was like around 1,000 yen, and it seemed as if it didn't depend on how much you bought. So I went to the website, and there was I think it was a notebook for around 600 yen. That I was interested in, but I don't want to pay 1,000 yen shipping for a 600 yen notebook.
Yeah, I bought about I think almost $200 of stuff, and it was still 1,000 yen. So I don't know why it costs so much to ship just a notebook, because even if you bring it to like Yamato, right? I don't think that costs 1,000 yen.
No, definitely not. Especially if you send like documents or even notebooks, because Yamato has this Neko Post, which is like a padded envelope. That usually is around 300 to 400 yen, and that's a shipping option that many of the Rakuten stores offer.
Yeah, and those are all free shipping, right?
Yeah, if you buy more than a certain amount, usually you get free shipping.
Yeah. All right. So I think that brings us to the end of the events section. There's this item on Midori, and I apparently asked you before, and then I just forgot what it was. So then I asked you again, but you won't tell me what this is. So what's going on with Midori?
Yes, so we met up early this week, Wednesday, right? And you asked me what is Midori, and I explained that it was a fountain pen, and you seemed to listen at the time, but then you asked me again yesterday. So Midori, which is known for the notebooks, Midori and the notebooks, and as we talked before about how Midori is under this Designville umbrella with Traveler's Notebook and Plotter and others, they have come out with a fountain pen. So it's called the MD fountain pen, and it is 2,750 yen. So it's roughly the same price as a Prera. And there are sort of two selling points. One is that it has a transparent feed. Now, many Chinese pens have transparent feeds, and I think we even talked about that. And that's quite nice. So when you ink up a pen, the feed takes the color of the ink, and it looks pretty cool. I'm not sure why. I don't never seen a Japanese pen with a transparent feed. I'm not sure why, but I'm actually happy to see that they're doing that. The other thing is that the nib is curved. So they say kakudo erabanai. What they're saying is that because the nib is curved, you will have like a smooth writing experience no matter at what angle you hold the pen. I'm not sure if there's any truth to that, but that's what they're selling.
The marketing is so it's fantastic. I mean, there's so much like garbage like this on the internet, and Midori, such a well-respected company in stationery, decides to come out with this product that I don't think anybody who was asking for this.
And I'm not sure if you opened the page, but if you look at the pen, I think what I told you before is that it looks like a Daiso pen with a platinum nib. It looks cheap.
Why not just use a Kakuno and be done with it? I mean, that's what they should have done. They should have made special editions of Kakunos.
A branded Kakuno, yeah, I agree. That would be brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, if they had that would be awesome. Yeah. But instead, they came out with the thing. And I'm reading the details now. For some reason, they have steel nib, M size, made in Slovenia. For some reason, I didn't know Slovenia was famous for making nibs. And then their cartridge is made in Austria. So this is probably the same people who are making Mont Blanc's inks.
Yeah, I've heard about that too. That there's some big ink OEM maker in Austria that makes inks for a lot of manufacturers.
And then you have to use European short size cartridges, but the pen is long.
Yeah, I wonder if it fits two cartridges. I couldn't tell from the photos.
Yeah, and you know why I think they should have just done a branded, Preppy or a branded Kakuno is that you can find cartridges for those very easily. To find a European type short size that's like so specific, and otherwise they have supposedly their own proprietary cartridges, which is probably, just random OEM stuff. And you have two colors, which is black and blue black. And when I think of people who bother enough to buy into the Midori lifestyle are probably not using those colors.
Yeah, I agree that they're not as common as Pilot cartridges. I don't mind that too much, but the whole pen looks cheap, and I think it sort of cheapens the brand.
Yeah. I'm reading the description again. It says, with the clear grip, you can enjoy the color of the ink. It's made for you to enjoy the color of the ink, but the inks available are black and blue black.
That's true.
Who designed this? They need to be fired. Nobody wanted this product. Okay, anyways, that's Midori. Hilarious. Another hilarious pen is Mr. Mori's wooden pen. And this is interesting because I think Fine Writing International is, for their 10th anniversary, they're making this wooden Fenestro.
Yeah.
And when you talk to Fine Writing about Fenestros, I think they told you that it was meant to be used with a converter as well as eyedroppering, right?
Yeah.
So that's how they market the pen. I'm a bit concerned because I think wood and ink probably don't go well to each other. As in, if you eyedropper a wooden pen, it's probably destined for disaster unless you have some kind of special treatment.
Yeah, if you look at, there was an Instagram post by Fine Writing recently when they announced this 10th anniversary pen, and I think they said that this is a wooden pen that you can eyedropper. So maybe on the inside there's some plastic or whatever. But yeah, there's always the risk that the ink ends up elsewhere.
Yeah, I read that as well. And the thing is, only time can tell if that's true, and I'm not going to be the person who tests that.
Yeah. But then Mori-san, and we have talked about this many times before, how he has commissioned various pens from Fine Writing over the last few years. And this year, apparently, he is going to commission a wooden pen. He hasn't said exactly what it's going to look like, but it's going to be a wooden Finestro.
Jacob, I think I get it. I think the barrel is actually all plastic, and the wooden part is a sleeve. Yeah, that would mean you could eyedropper it.
But then Mori-san is saying that you still might end up with ink stain maybe on the outside. Maybe that's his idea. So in his view, you probably need to coat the pen with, I think that said beeswax or something to keep the ink from staining the wooden parts.
Yeah, and he had a great solution for it, didn't he?
Yes, so he said that the manufacturer, like Fine Writing, is not going to do that, and he's not going to do that. But he says that the buyers, the users, should do this themselves, and this will be fun. It will be fun. Coat the pen yourself.
Make your own pen.
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, I really love Fine Writing as a company and as a brand. They do incredible stuff.
Yeah.
You know, their non-production lines are just awesome.
Yeah.
They're awesome, right? I think they have the most innovative silversmiths that are working with them for their clips. Their stuff is insane. I really loved also the Bronze Age.
Yes.
I like the Dark Age. I'm not a fan of the Finestro.
Right. So what they told me was that there were two complaints about the brass pen. One was that it was too heavy, and the other one was that people did want to use cartridges and converters, and it doesn't look that nice in a big like transparent barrel. So those were the two problems they wanted to solve with a Finestro.
Yeah, I understand that, but I think, you know, that means you make a different line, because there are a lot of people who bought those pens specifically because it was very heavy and because you could eyedropper and have the ink sloshed around. Yeah, I think those are just two different pens. They're not for the same market.
Yeah.
So, you know, like, I'm a buyer of the Bronze Age and the Dark Age, but I'm not a buyer for the Finestro. The buyer for the Finestro wouldn't be the buyer for the Bronze Age and the Dark Age.
I also wonder if there were some kind of production difficulties. I vaguely recall something about the third generation in particular was difficult to make.
Yeah. I mean, I wish that they retired the Planets series rather than the Brass series.
Yeah.
Because then you have a plastic pen that's great, right? And then you have a brass pen that's great as well.
There's one interesting thing about Fine Writing's 10th anniversary pen, the 10th anniversary, the wooden Finestro. I'm not sure if you noticed that, but the regular Finestro has a number 6 size nib. The anniversary one has a number 5 size, like arrow nib.
I think those. Oh yeah, they're number 5 size. Yeah, they're arrow nibs. Yeah.
In fact, I've seen a lot of custom pens from Fine Writing with these arrow nibs. They seem to be a big fan of those nibs.
Okay, so I don't think we have so much time left.
Right.
So let's go to just we want to do more Q&A questions, but let's just do 2 of them. So the first question we have is how much collectors, so how do collectors in Japan like Urushi pens? Do they prefer custom like Bookmondo, or do they prefer pens from big name manufacturers? And this question is from... Who is this question from?
This is from Just V-Rod.
Okay. So, thank you for the question. I think in a similar... we kind of talked about it earlier in this episode, but I think a lot of Japanese collectors really have a strong preference to what is made by big brand manufacturers.
Yeah.
I think, in a way, it's kind of like a wiener comparison contest.
There's a bit of that.
Because there's this kind of like a pride. Say, if I'm going to buy a Maki-e pen, I'm going to buy from Pilot, from Namiki, and look at my awesome Maki-e pen. There isn't a lot of, I want to find the perfect pen for me with the design that I really love.
Yeah, it should be like a pen with a history, a pen with a story.
Yeah. And I'm talking about just at the Maki-e level. And then on the colorful resins level, I think that's much more, up for customization. But I think while customers like custom products, they still want it to be attached to some kind of a brand or some kind of a retailer, like your Pentanote or your Usagiya. So those sell out really quick. But if you get a customized, I don't know, from some pen maker, let's say you had a Sean Newton to remake a King of Pen, and then you ask them to pay the price that it costs to make that, I think that's, in the US, I think that would go almost immediately, and here it would be much harder to move.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You do sometimes see at this Wagner event, for example, you see some people who showing off their custom Urushi Maki-e pens, but in those cases, the Urushi and the Maki-e is made by very famous, very well-known Wajima artists that have been doing this for like 50 years, and they have like a multi-year waiting list. There's a very well-known name, and although I mean in our circles and in the West, Bokumundo is getting more and more popular. It's not. This is sort of a different level. I think this is people who spent their entire life doing nothing but Maki, and they have really made a name for themselves, not just in the pen community, but in the Urushi and Maki community in general.
Yeah, I think it's like the Matsuda Maki that showed up at Tips.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff we're talking about, if they go for that. And Matsuda didn't have a good time at Tips.
That's possible.
I mean, from what I could see anyways. I'm not sure of the exact numbers, but I didn't see anybody buy anything from that table.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, and then the second question, the last question of the day. How often do you change ink in your favorite pens? Do you always write a pen dry, or do you dump an ink if you don't like it? And this question is from?
This is from Jake.
All right, thank you, Jake, for the question. I think you and I have different answers.
I don't usually dump ink, I would say. What does happen is that, let's say, recently I inked up a Pilot Custom 743 with a fine nib with some blue-black ink, and I got bored with it after a while. So what I did was I took the converter and stuck it on my 742 with a double broad nib, and then I emptied the converter in half an hour or so. So I swap converter or swap nibs to get to the ink faster. I don't dump it.
Yeah, so that's interesting. I have so many pens that if I'm bored with an ink, I just pick up a different pen. And if I feel like I'm never going to finish writing with that ink, then I do dump it out. But I have like 200 bottles of inks right now in my other room, so that's probably why I'm okay with dumping ink out. I hesitate, and then I dump it out.
For some reason, I feel less hesitant about dumping inks when it's a sample, which it seems strange because if it's a sample, there's less of it. But if it's a sample, then I haven't sort of committed to that ink. I haven't bought a bottle. And usually
that's interesting.
And usually someone giving me some Tono and Lims ink sample that is just too light to even use for normal writing.
Yeah, I have no problems dumping out Tono Lims. In fact, I'll dump it out from the bottle.
Yeah.
All right, so I think that was a good episode yet again.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, everybody. For our 1 year anniversary, which is coming up very soon, in March, I'm thinking of creating some kind of a Patreon membership kind of way in order to help us finance this project. But meanwhile, there is no direct way for you to contribute monetarily to this project. And the reason why I want to bring this up is because hosting a podcast does cost money. It does cost money to pay the servers, to pay hosting fees, to pay the website. And also you might have noticed that we're trying out different ways to record as well. We want to do better live recordings, and the setup that we have right now just is not good enough for us to really do live recordings at a crisper audio. So we do want to do that. That's kind of like a future project thing, but in order to get there, we will need your support. Jacob and I, we've talked a bit about ads before, if it's something that's wise to do. My personal opinion is that I don't really want to do ads. I think the concept of advertising on podcasts, it's a bit weird. It's a bit like asking you to give us money because you liked somebody else's product, and we want to make a product that you like and that you think is good enough to really contribute to. So we're thinking of a Patreon project sometime in the future. But as of now, there is a way for you to support our show, and that way is by telling your friends, and that way is by writing a review, giving us a rating on iTunes or on Spotify or wherever you can give us a rating. That helps us really reach new audiences. It helps other people discover this podcast, and also helps us build up a community around the Japanese and greater Asian stationery scene. We want to be able to bring more content to you, more information to you. That's why we started this project, and your support will be very, very critical in helping us expand that vision and to reach the goals that we want to reach for the podcast. So as always, thank you so much. You are the reason why this podcast is even possible. And tell a friend, spread the word, and hopefully we'll be doing this for a long, long time.
Yes, yeah. Nothing to add to that.
All right, so with that said, my name is CY. You can find me on my website at tokyostationpens.com, on Instagram at tokyostationpens, and on Twitter at tokyostationmnh.
And my name is Jacob. I'm Foodafan on Instagram and on Twitter, and I have a blog at foodafan.com.
Bye-bye.
Bye.